Hey, good morning, class. Welcome in. We're going to be back at it today. Second discussion on the Renaissance, and it's actually going to be the Italian Renaissance Part 2. If you can remember from our last discussion, again, we took a look at essentially Italy becoming the hub for the Renaissance, where they're starting to shift away from the Dark Ages, starting to find the light, starting to find education, starting to find this burst of energy to go back to ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and starting to become intellectuals. We start seeing again, the Medici family and what they're able to do in terms of attaining power and using fear to maintain that power. We also took a look at what it meant to be humanist, where again, you were going to focus on the self and provide that energy that really hadn't been seen before. And lastly, again, we kind of looked at the expectations of men and women, this whole term of being a Renaissance man or Renaissance woman. Again, being well versed in everything, having the ability to read and write poetry, and to sing and to dance, and also to be, a fighter and someone that's trained, that's brutal and can be on the battlefield. So again, that's kind of what we opened up with. That's what we looked at. Now we're going to look at the Italian Renaissance Part 2. Okay, so let's talk about this burst of art and how it's going to impact Italy. This opening picture is the marriage of the Virgin. And it's going to use a certain tactic and technique that we're going to discuss here in a little bit. But the marriage of the Virgin, again, another beautiful painting that's conducted by Raphael. Okay, but we have basically a situation where art is going to be the thing. Okay, supported by patrons like Isabella d'Este, dozens of top artists worked in northern Italy. As the Renaissance advanced, artistic styles are going to change. Now, Renaissance artists, they're going to start using this concept of perspective, okay? Now, perspective is a painting technique that involves three dimensions on a flat surface. So very much like that picture that we saw, Marriage of the Virgin, okay? You've got different perspectives at different vantage points. Now, because of the emphasis on individuality, artists began to sculpt the human body. All right, Michelangelo's depiction of David is the best example of this shift in style. Okay, you can still see David today. All right, where again it's male figure, it's a marble cut, and again basically a representation of how detailed and intricate the artwork was in terms of being dedicated to the body. Okay, now Donatello is also going to make sculptures. He's going to make them very realistic. He's going to start carving natural postures and expressions that are going to reveal that personality. Okay. So again, we have Marriage of the Virgin. We've got that vanishing point right in the middle. You've got the horizon. So if you are familiar with art, that's what we're seeing here with perspective. And then we have again the classic image here of David. Again, David you can still find in Italy. That statue is still there and still standing. So let's talk about Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, a Renaissance man. All right. Now Leonardo da Vinci was a painter. He was a sculptor, he was an inventor, he was a scientist. He had a genuine curiosity on how things worked. All right, he really went in depth and really started to try to understand the world. Okay, and he took many years to do this. Now, whether it was a muscle movement or how veins are arranged on a leaf, Da Vinci constantly took notes and made sketches. He was very meticulous in how he got things done. And again, he's going to extend into all areas: art, science, even into math. Okay, his most famous works include the Mona Lisa, which we talked about last time, and the Last Supper, which you are probably familiar with. Okay, however, he had plans to invent items such as the helicopter, the machine gun, and the armored tank. So not only does he have this artistic flair, but he's also got this desire to look at reinventing military technology. Now, Leonardo's legacy is going to influence thousands of artists, writers, and scientists after his time. So he's a true Renaissance man, a true jack of all trades. And here's some images. Again, you start looking at these primitive forms of the helicopter, of the armored tank. In the center, you've got, again, the Last Supper. Again, the Last Supper depicting Jesus' last meal before he is crucified. Okay? You have other flying objects in the machine gun. So Da Vinci really, again, kind of sets the bar in terms of the Renaissance artists and innovators. Okay, let's take a look at some more artists of the Renaissance. So Raphael is going to learn from Da Vinci and from Michelangelo. He often portrayed Madonna and the Child in his work. His most famous use was this perspective. Okay, so perspective is what he would use in his art, and he would bring that art to life. Now, Italian women were also involved as painters. Okay, Sofonisba Anguissola, all right, gained a reputation for her portrait of her sisters and the portrait of King Philip II of Spain. Artemisia Gentileschi, again, was another artist with a notoriety, with a reputation. She painted strong, heroic women in her work. So you have female artists who, at the starting point of the Renaissance, were kind of frowned upon to have any of their own work, but these women were making these splendid, artistic pieces. Okay, now, Renaissance writers are going to change literature, okay? Several Renaissance writers wrote in their own vernacular. Remember, vernacular was their writing in their own language. Vernacular is that native tongue or native language of the writer. So self-expression and individuality became the most common theme with them in basically with Renaissance writers. Petrarch was one of the earliest humanists, okay? Some have called him the father of the Renaissance in terms of humanism, okay? He basically wrote sonnets in both Latin and Italian. So Latin, again, was kind of the universal language at the time, but his own vernacular, Italian, is what he was implementing. Giovanni Boccaccio, all right, used both tragedy and comedy in his written works. His emphasis was to use humor to express the human condition. Remember, again, a lot of tough times, even during the Renaissance, but there needed to be some humor. There needed some comic relief. And so Boccaccio is going to use both tragedy and comedy. Okay? Okay. So our last important figure of the Italian Renaissance, Machiavelli. Okay? The Prince was a book by Niccolo Machiavelli. Okay? And exposed basically the imperfect condition of human beings, our flaws. Okay? In it, Machiavelli establishes a political playbook, and this political playbook is still used today. Okay, you look at politicians in modern times, they're going to still revert back to the teachings and the writings of Machiavelli. So Machiavelli essentially discusses the role of power and how power is used by people of influence, people that are politicians. And he asserts that a ruler will gain power and keep it in spite of his or her enemies. Okay? Machiavelli suggests that people are selfish, fickle, and corrupt. So deep down, we have these notions of being selfish and saying, listen, if I'm going to become in power, I need to do whatever I can to attain that power and expand that power. To succeed in a wicked world, a prince has to be a strong lion and as shrewd as a fox. Machiavelli felt that a ruler may have to trick other people and enemies for the good of the state. So convincing other people to follow along with that ruler believes it. Okay, Machiavelli was not concerned with what was morally right. Okay, he was concerned with what was politically effective. How can I get to the power and at what cost? And honestly, there were no rules. It basically meant that if you were to become powerful in this world, you could do whatever you needed to do, whether it be take out an enemy politician, whether it be using some corrupt tactics. And again, we see that today. Modern politicians still essentially implement the rulings of Machiavelli. His famous quote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." So if you can't be feared and loved at the same time, he feels that it's better to be feared. Okay, and that's a big statement. That's Machiavelli. Okay, if you're an Office fan, there's a big quote that's kind of a take on this from Michael Scott. Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. Okay, so some good humor there from Michael Scott. All right, but we really want to take a look at what Machiavelli was able to do. And again, he sets up this political playbook that has been used for centuries. All right, and his writings in The Prince really go into this whole notion of attaining power and keeping it no matter what. Okay? All right, folks, again, we got a journal log to look at, and we're going to work on actually a Renaissance research project, which will be coming up at the end of the week. So we'll do that when we meet next time. All right? Take care, folks. Have a great day, and I'll see you around.